Good evening, everybody, and it's Wednesday night. And you know what night that is? It is No Limits Night. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Mad Mouth, along with Candy Ebling.
Hello, everybody.
And alongside for the second straight day here, Ron Renzy. Good evening, Mr. Renzy.
Good evening to both of you.
How are you doing today now that you're a caged Renzy? Are you
Caged Renzy? Is that kind of like a chicken or something? I'm doing okay. Hanging in there. It's an honor to be on the show. I have to give you credit for doing all these shows for all these listeners. It's a job, but if someone has to do it, it's going to be you.
That's it, the Cage Renzy. We're about to have a frenzy full of information here on, once again, No Limits. It's Hump Day. Anyways, Candy Ebling will lead it off, and she has some unbelievable statistics that are going to lead into what this broadcast is going to be titled, Pandemic Etiquette.
I have to say, I never thought we'd hit this spot, but today we passed in the United States alone the 3 million mark as to confirmed cases of coronavirus. And the death toll has surpassed 128,000 people at this point. It is just rampantly, the cases are just unbelievably that right now, today, they surpassed 60,000 new cases reported in the United States for the first time. And every day, our numbers keep going up and increasing further and further. The 7-day average case total has increased for the last 30 days straight. The average was up more than 9,200 since a week ago. We're setting highs. California set a high of its own today with over 11,694 single-day cases. That's higher than in any other state on any other day. I mean,
those numbers are just staggering.
What about Florida?
South Florida they figure at this point in all of Florida, there is only 15% availability in ICU beds over the whole state. There's 42 hospitals that don't have any ICU beds available.
Unreal.
So it's not like we're just getting sick and we're walking around asymptomatic. We're still getting hit hard with it. With a lot of symptoms, and it's not good. The news is not good.
No, that's not good. I mean, that is just, those numbers are staggering. And Candy, did I read somewhere today that I know we're broadcasting from Florida? Are we now the epicenter of this disaster?
Yes, we actually emerged today as the world's new epicenter for COVID-19.
Wow.
Who would have ever thought that?
No, I mean, who would have ever thought that? I mean, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, whatever we want to calculate it, we were in a different world. Things were different, and that's kind of what we were going to talk a little bit about tonight, Scott, is that we can't act like we're living in January or February of 2020, even though that's just a few months ago. Things are different. So people are a little confused on what's the right thing to do. How do you act with others when you go out? What's the proper thing to do? I mean, we've heard over and over again, you need to wear a mask and you need to practice social distancing. We know it. We've heard the words, but what are people doing on the ground? What do they tell their friends, their neighbors, their family when they may not be doing what we've been told to do over and over again? I don't know. It's something that we just want to throw out there and talk about.
Well, I guess let's go back to the old saying, Ron, Candy, take a horse to water, but can't make them drink. Got a lot of horses out there, and they're not drinking. The drinking here is mask up, stay safe, stay home. I know a lot of people, it's hard for a lot of people to stay in for a long time, but folks, we're forced to do it. That's all there is to it. That's the reality. I don't want to hear all this nonsense about, well, the numbers are high because more testing is being done. So what? That numbers, I've been in the media for the better part of 40 years, and I repeat 40 years, and you can make numbers to be whatever you want. But the reality is we base our life on hard numbers. I don't care whether it's baseball, whether it's banking, or or the legal business, it doesn't matter. This is a numerical society is really what it is. And unfortunately, the numbers don't lie.
Scott, I 100% agree with that. The numbers don't lie. And just look at the numbers. I mean, to you were talking about sports, and baseball is a perfect example. I mean, everyone knows that a hitter that's batting 250 is hitting better than a batter that's batting 125. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. You can try and finagle it all you want, and you can blame on whatever, but the numbers are the numbers. You're 100% right. And how do we get people to look at that? Just to look at the numbers, look at the facts.
Ron, I'm not so sure you can anymore. I'm not so sure you can. Can you, Candy?
I think it's hard because I think as we've progressed throughout this pandemic, we've heard different things. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion is. And unfortunately, a lot of people are making this more about politics. And this has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with staying alive, respecting the person that is standing next to you or standing across, or that is someplace, that is somebody else's brother, sister, family member. I don't wear a mask for me. I wear a mask for the other people. And that's what I think people are losing sight of.
And I just want to pipe in that I agree with that. People are losing sight. You wear a mask to protect others, your family, your friends, your coworkers. And if everybody cared about others rather than what do I get out of it?
Right.
I think we go a long way. And you brought up, you're right, it's not a political situation. If somebody if somebody fell on a banana, somebody was walking in a grocery store and fell on a banana, you're not going to get a political debate. Well, that banana's to the left, that banana's to the right. It just doesn't work that way. But how did this become politicized? I don't know, but it has. It really has. And you end up getting in debates that are off track.
Right.
Rather than kind of what Scott said. Well, look at the numbers and listen to the science. Science says wear a mask. Science says social distance. And hey, we all want to go out. We all want to see people. We all want to do fun things. Of course not. We all want to go back to the ballpark, whether it's whether your favorite ballpark is the movie theater or the store or a restaurant or the actual ballpark. We all want to go back to the ballpark, but we can only do what we can do right now, and we have to be safe. And I don't know what you guys think, but I just think the quicker we get through this, and it's going to be better for everybody rather than prolong it on and on and on.
Well, if we keep doing what we're doing at this rate, we're all going to be infected at some point. I mean, we can't stop it because no one's following. And say no one. There are a number of people that aren't following. They're rebelling, kind of like Ron. You remember when they first put in the seatbelt law? And here you're supposed to wear your seatbelt. Well, why do you wear your seatbelt? You wear your seatbelt for yourself, not for the other person. This is different. You're wearing a mask for all the other people. You have no idea what's going on in their life. You might think, oh, well, I'm healthy. I don't show any symptoms. They're healthy. They're out. They can get exposed to it. But what if they go home and they have someone sick at home, but yet they have to go out and get their medicine because for some reason the medicine didn't get mailed or delivered, and so they've got to go out. So now you're going to expose everybody? This is what's happening, and people don't respect others. We've lost a lot of that in today's society, and I think it's just sad.
I never thought I would see the day that I would have to buy 2 or 3 meals out and put them on my refrigerator because I'm not comfortable going out to restaurants. But indeed, that's exactly what it is. Whether it's cooking at home or actually buying meals in advance, which is okay, mask and all, or drive through, whatever the case is, you know what you've got to do. But if that's the reality, I'm content with that. But, let's talk about numbers, okay? I'm going to give one number that I'm very proud of, okay? It's called the Toys R Us number. And for all you people that wonder what Toys R Us is, that's okay. That's when you buy your kids' toys. But for me, a Toys R Us event took place. I went to my first Miami Marlins Zoom press conference. Me, going to a Miami Marlins Zoom press conference. I had an opportunity to talk to Don Mattingly via Zoom. And I got to tell you, it was pretty cool stuff. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's covered an awful lot of games over the years. Usually we talk to the manager in the clubhouse or in the dugout. But I got to tell you, it was a very different experience. It really was. Seeing 15, 20 of us in there, I got to tell you, it was humbling because I had to raise my hand in that Zoom thing. I never had to do it before. I can't sit there and speak up a lot of times. I know how many beat writers or TV people are there, but you got to be respectful of those individuals trying to do what they do. Plus the fact that, this was the first time for me. But as I understood it and embraced it, I realized there may be a whole lot more of these things. And it was a very unique situation because Don Mattingly throughout the whole time is talking about how players are being tested every other day. I asked him about a potential 6-man rotation. He says, I don't plan to do it. How much up to speed are your pitcher is going to end up getting. And he was telling me today at the conference that about 75, 80 pitches are where they're at. So he seems to think that they'll get up to speed. And, of course, we talk about the crazy rule changes. And then he even said, I don't care about the number of games. College World Series games, they don't play as many, but we get judged by 162 games as our season. So everybody knows the unprecedented times that baseball and all sports are going to have to deal with when it comes back to that old thing called numbers. But I got to tell you, it's not like I don't do Zoom calls. I've never done them up until this point, but when I see that in an industry which is so predicated on interaction, manager talking to the press, much different situation. It really was. And I think that I'm actually looking forward to doing it more and more because I'm able to accumulate as much information, not only what we do with the South Florida Tribune, but what I'll also be able to do for the broadcast as well. So, it took me a little while to kind of get the guts to do it because I've never done anything like this before. And I've gotten, for me, Zoom meetings have been what I consider a, slow learning thing, but I'm getting more and more comfortable with them on different types of formats. And I got to tell you what, I was very intrigued because I'll tell you what baseball will be doing this year if there is a season. More and more announcers are going to be broadcasting road games from home, or I don't think they'll be doing it from the stadium, so they'll have monitors on both sides, but they won't have the interaction with the manager or the players as well. So I was kind of getting that initial feeling today, and I got to tell you, it was very interesting and unique. And Candy, when I told her about it, she was happy for me because she felt like I was a real little kid here, playing with my little toy.
Scott, that is fantastic. I mean, what you're doing is you're embracing the change. You're just keeping up with what you have to do to get by, and that's fascinating. Talk about baseball. I mean, probably the most traditional of all sports, baseball, and baseball doing what it has to do to be able to play and to have a Zoom meeting like that. I mean, first it must have been a surreal experience, but when you really thought about it, it's kind of cool. I mean, I for one, never even heard of Zoom prior to maybe the end of March, beginning of April. I don't quite remember, and now I use it pretty much every day. It's hard to believe, but the fact that you were able to talk to Don Mattingly in a press conference and get answers, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, if we have this technology, I'm glad we're using it.
Ron, that was a great word, surreal, because that's exactly what I was thinking about. It's not like I can go to a regular networking group and get my 2 or 3 minutes. I'm lucky to get 2 or 3 questions, but very able to get them in a sense, and try to be respectful of my colleagues. But the word surreal really is how that was, and I'll get more and more used to it as I understand the process, especially considering this industry is always based on regular, direct human interaction. So I got to tell you, over the years with Miami Marlins, I've had a lot of firsts with them. The first All-Star game, Marlins Park. The first no-hitter I've ever seen, unfortunately, at the expense of my Detroit Tigers. Candy and I were there to see Henderson Alvarez win in the 162nd game against the Tigers, and now I feel like I'm a member of the Marlins media, and now my first Zoom call. So I guess I'm going to be looking at writing a story for the South Florida Tribune about Marlins first, and I can think of those 3 things as surreal experiences. But yeah, Ron, you're right. I mean, it wasn't a typical Zoom call where what we've done with the chamber is one thing. This is just totally different. And, I'm sure I'll get to like it more and more, getting with the Marlins. Who's to say that as I get used to it with some of the other teams that I'll be working with, the same thing. But to say I'm getting my feet wet right here would be mildly stating the obvious. So, yeah, you want to, since we have a young lady by the name of Candy on the phone, say that I feel like a kid at a candy store was probably appropriate to mention that.
I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome that you embraced it, and it seems like it was a really cool experience, and you can do it again and again. And think, if you refuse and said, "Well, I'm not going to do this newfangled technology, I'm just refuse to do it," then you're going to be left behind. Well, you're going to be left behind because you would not get the interview.
Well, let me tell you this, okay? After I was driving Candy back from work, I said, I can't wait for that next Marlins Zoom call to come, because I was nervous about going on that first one. Sure, I was going to do it, and all of a sudden, I'm Candy. What time do these emails usually come?
He kept asking, when do we get the email? Do we get an email? Did we get an email? I want the information for tomorrow's one. I want the information for tomorrow's one. It was just so exciting to see that something good and a change from the pandemic came from it, and that more people can enjoy. I think one of the things, I've gone to some spring training games before the pandemic with Scott, and I'm talking previous years, and it was hard to get clubhouse access. It was hard to, and I think with doing it on Zoom, more people had the ability to be available and to ask a question that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. So I think it's great.
And yet, ironically, some of the writers were wearing masks where they were at, too. And now I'm definitely ready to get to some games this year. I'll just have to figure out what games I can go, if there are any. But you want to talk about a person chomping at the bit to get down to Marlins Park, I'm it.
Well, where you can find a copy of that Marlins schedule would be on the SouthFloridaTribune.com.
Absolutely, everybody should look at it, and let's. I have to say, I'm going to put my plug in, go Marlins, as a fan, and I think let's embrace it. Let's definitely embrace it, and this kind of goes to show you what we've been talking about. If you think, we'll take all the sports we're talking about, Major League Baseball, they're taking all these steps to be safe. The players being tested all the time. The games, which may hopefully will take place, may not have fans. Doing the interviews on Zoom, having the commentators not in the park. I mean, if you think, if Major League Baseball can do all those things, so we can get to watch our national pastime, your average folk can wear a mask. Your average person could be more than 6 feet away from somebody else. I mean, let's think about it. People are trying to move mountains so we can enjoy our lives the best possible. Let's try and help. That's my only thought on that.
I agree. They put arrows down when you're shopping at a grocery store, that you're going down the right way. Let's look at those arrows. Let's follow them. Let's not always be in such a rush. It's amazing to me how many people are always in such a rush, and yet you don't stop and say, okay, wait a minute. Let's pause a second. You could be shopping at the grocery store, and you're supposed to keep your social distance. You're 6 feet away, and you might want the same product somebody else is looking for. So instead of barging in and grabbing it, give the person a minute, let them pick it up, and wait for them a minute. It just amazes me how impatient of a society we've become. I work at a bank, and I will tell you, the other day we had, our lobby is closed because of the pandemic. We don't have glass yet, partitioning any place. So our lobby is closed, so our bankers are making phone calls. We had a couple old ladies in our drive-thru, and they were taking a little bit longer than usual because we're doing more things in the drive-thru because we're not open. I literally had a guy get out of his car and yell at us because because they were taking a little longer than he would have liked.
Really? Actually, physically took the time to get out and yell at people that were trying to do their best.
Yes. I was just amazed. I'm like, are you serious? It just floored me.
Wow.
It's sad.
don't even know how to respond to that one. Scott, you got something there?
No, I got to tell you, I don't have one for that. I mean, the reality is Candy's right. You know, she works in an industry where people are impatient. When you're talking about the old mighty dollar, people tend to get more temperament, and sometimes they view her as the whipping person because that's the only place that they go to beg for relief. But when you can't help everybody out, holy smokes, boy, they get very, very upset. And banks try to do what they can to make you as satisfied as they can, and if they give you a bad rating, that doesn't help matters any either. But I wonder how much stock, Candy, these mad ratings take care of when you have during a pandemic working through a drive-thru. I don't even know. That's something I'm not even sure about.
Well, it's tough. And speaking of which, did you hear of the latest that we are actually in a nationwide coin shortage? Because of this pandemic, because the Federal Reserve, because they had to shut down just like everybody else, they had to have fewer people in, they actually weren't keeping up with the demand for coins, and because people aren't out spending them, so there's all these coins sitting at people's homes that literally there is a coin shortage, and banks can't get all the coin that they need to supply to a lot of the business customers. So a lot of the businesses are now asking you to either have exact change or to use your debit card or credit card.
That's weird.
I didn't hear that. I did not hear that. It makes logical sense. I didn't hear that. There's an actual coin shortage in the United States.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
That is pretty weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It shows things are affected that you wouldn't even dream of. I wouldn't have known that, I guess, because maybe we're not in that kind of business that uses smaller coins. But wow, that's amazing. It shows how it affected everything. I mean, did you ever think banking would be affected by pretty much anything? I mean,
not like that.
Pandemic.
No.
And what you said about the grocery store is 100% true. I mean, there's arrows there. Just go down the arrows, and I know I've seen those experiences where somebody be looking at a shelf and somebody just kind of reaches over them or barges right by and gets huffy, and it just doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of what we're the general topic. Well, what's the proper etiquette? The etiquette would be wait 10 seconds.
Right.
Wait till the person finishes. I mean the proper thing. Just like in what happened, we were saying at the bank, the proper thing to do for the guy is to wait. I mean, it's obviously, if you looked, it's a couple of senior citizens. Right. Of course, the people in the bank are doing the best they can. Do they want the drive-through to have a line? Of course not, but they're doing the best they can. I mean, the customer must have known you can't go inside, so everybody's going to have to go through the drive-through. It's not that difficult to figure out.
Right.
So, Ron, you sent us an interesting article that I want you to go over, and then we're going to continue this roundtable discussion based on that, because we can go a lot of different directions with this broadcast. And you know what? As far as I'm concerned, we're going to go as long as it's necessary, because this is a very educational, informative type of broadcast. And let me tell you, I will go out there and make sure that we get this out as much as we can to make sure that our point is definitely hammered home. So go ahead and go over the nature of what you sent us, and then we're going to continue to talk about each point piece by piece, Ron.
Sure. I found this article. I was just searching through, thinking about the show, and there's an article posted on CNN, and it's essentially pandemic etiquette. And basically the theme of the article is a lot of socially awkward situations are being caused by the issue with the pandemic. And this article takes the point from, it kind of goes from the other side, because we talked about thus far about what is the right thing to do, wear your masks, wait in line, that sort of thing. This article kind of goes into, what do you do? What do you do if you are trying your best and doing the right thing, and somebody else in your situation, whether it's another customer or a friend or whatever, is doing something that you consider not the right thing? For instance, it talks about just what Candy was saying. In the grocery store, people getting too close, people being in a rush. What do you do? The article gives some hints on what to do, and that's kind of like to talk about that. some of them are easier said than done. Essentially, the article, goes into basically being kind to others, but being nice about it, maybe being firm, like excuse me, we have to be certain feet away, or please wait, I'm almost done, give me a few seconds, or maybe make a joke out of, hey, this is kind of wacky, we have to all wear these funny masks, but we'll get through it together. There's different ways to take it to kind of diffuse the situation, because the last thing you want is people getting in fights over this, which we know there have been. So that's kind of the crux of the article, and I thought it'd be interesting for us to kind of explore. I mean, that was the first little scenario, that another customer gets too close to you in the grocery store, or doesn't have a mask. Hopefully everybody does. So how do you handle those? And that's kind of the crux. And I was thinking, throw out some ideas. What would either of you do?
I've never really measured out 6 feet. What is 6 feet in distance these days?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it is, Scott, how tall are you? You're like around 6 feet or a little over, right?
Around 5'11".
All right, 5'11". Okay, because I guess we're roughly the same height.
Right.
So you got to picture Scott laying down, essentially. Which is kind of hard to do, but you kind of a decent sized fella laying down. So, which is not the easiest thing to do, but you got to kind of picture him that way, and that gives you the 6 feet, because distance is difficult. I agree with you 100%. Sometimes I'm like, well, is this 6 feet? Is this 5 feet? Is this 10 feet? And in the U.S. they say 6 feet, and the funny thing is in Europe they say 2 meters with the metric system, but I guess it's roughly the same, because I know a meter's a little longer than the yard. We know for the 100-meter dash. So I think that makes it difficult. I think it is. You kind of got to picture yourself essentially laying down and kind of see if you're that far from the person. Unless you guys can think of a better way to do it, that's the only visualization I'm able to get in my head to kind of think how I can try and measure this and be somewhat accurate.
Yeah, I think what I've known, especially as we become more aware of it with Walmart, if anybody gets close to me, what I do to try to be polite about it is I just try to go as far away from it as I can, so that I don't even run the risk of doing it. It becomes a subconscious thing for me. And, of course, I do have the mask on, so that helps, too, to protect myself. But if I can get a little further away without being rude, that's what I pretty much do.
Well, Ron,
yeah, I've done that. I've done the same thing. That if there's space in the store, I'll just, even if I'm looking at something, I will get away and let the other person do their thing, right. Rather than kind of, I try to be polite about it. Sometimes it's a little difficult, and I don't mind waiting my turn, and I'm sure you guys don't mind waiting your turn. But it gets to be when it's a little packed, and then it gets to be a little more difficult to figure out.
Well, here's the thing, though. Okay, what I do is we try to go to the grocery store early in the morning. But go ahead, Candy.
What I was trying to say, Ron, is when I made that comment, like that's what I would say to someone if they got too close to me. What, they talk about social distance and it's 6 feet. How far is 6 feet? To kind of give them an awareness that, you might be too close, that I just don't realize,
See, it was so good you threw me off. I was trying to explain how I measure 6 feet.
Exactly.
That totally diffused any situation, because I took it as, that's a good question. Right. I think anybody else, I like that. Let's all try that. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was just one instance about social distancing, and now the mask thing is a little different. I mean, I guess it depends on where you live and where you are, because a lot of, especially down here in South Florida, I would say the 3 counties, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, all have face mask requirements inside businesses. And, I mean, you could joke about, this mask, I get so hot inside this mask, but I'm protecting everybody, so it's what I need to do.
Well, like I mentioned before, my strategy at the grocery store is get there at 7:30 in the morning. Get the heck away from the crowd. You got a wide open store, maybe not as wide as Barry Sanders would run through a football field and elude one tackler or the other. Had to get that sports reference in, but stay the heck away and get up early they say early to rise, early to bed, early to rise. We work like hell and advertise and get the hell out of there as fast as I possibly can. And do it at 7:38 in the morning. You don't have to worry about all these people getting in the way because you have plenty of space. Maybe not Barry style, but close enough.
I think that's an excellent idea, and Candy, you make a fantastic point. But that's, if we were, I like the Barry Sanders analogy, and you're right. And the mask it's important. And I've heard that it kind of runs. It's a little more difficult for a small business person. Let's say, you own a smaller shop. I don't know, a card shop or something, and somebody comes in. You don't want to turn business away, but it's just the right thing to do to protect all the customers in there. So I think the way Candy said it, your comment is the best. And the article, you kind of fit in with the article. So I think your idea is actually better than what the article said.
Well, the thing is, if you're really close to somebody in a smaller environment, I just stay as far away as I can and just show patience at that particular point. I figure it's better that or what's the alternative? ICU, and I'm not saying ICU. I'm talking about ICU. And I'm not talking about what hospital they're going to wind up in, although when it comes to some of the ones I've been around here because I've been sick, I've covered the Victory Tour more than I want to admit here.
That's true. ICU, because you don't want to be in the ICU.
Exactly.
That's a good one, especially when the beds are less and less beds, like Candy was pointing out before.
Well, I had my fuel before I came on the broadcast and throughout the day. So, and Candy's got her hand right over her head and said, "Oh, he's on a roll. There goes another night's sleep. Hello, Dolly. It's not nice to sleep tonight." Then again, it's
that's funny. That's funny. And another little thing that the article talks about, which I was interesting, is when you're around, let's say, a friend or a family member, or talking to somebody, even on a Zoom call, and somebody brings up this kind of conspiracy theory that you might not quite agree with or is not supported by anything that you're aware of, do you just let them go on? Do you try and change the subject? Do you try to make a joke out of it? Because you don't want to get in an argument with anybody. That's not going to help anything. It's not going to let you do business, that's for sure. So how do you diffuse that situation?
I personally, I just say, I've heard so many different stories that at this point, I don't know which one to, follow or listen to, or I just know that there's this virus out there and we need to protect ourselves, and that's all I need to know.
Yeah, protect yourself at all costs is what you got to do. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. With the numbers as staggering as we are, I mean, I actually wonder if we are in the second wave or are we close? Nobody even realizes what first and second wave is. I mean, all you got to do is look at the numbers every day, and they're depressing. They're like a bad joke the way they keep rising and rising and rising. We don't even know if there's a second wave yet, but the numbers don't lie, like we talked about earlier in the broadcast. So, I don't know. What can I tell you? You have to do what you got to do. Protect yourself first.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I guess it's a good fallback that you pointed out, Scott, at the numbers. I mean, if somebody doesn't believe the numbers, there's nothing you or I are going to be able to do to change their mind. So just point out, hey, the numbers are the numbers, and I'm going by the numbers. It's not like Candy was saying before. It's not a political issue. As far as I know, the coronavirus doesn't have political allegiances. It's just a virus that, unfortunately, is bad for everybody. So the numbers are the numbers. I'm going to keep saying that. I like that. The numbers are the numbers.
Well, unlike HIV and AIDS many years ago that was limited to a specific situation, I don't want to get into the logistics. COVID-19, you're fair game for everybody, not just a particular type of way of getting it.
That's true. It's fair game for everybody, and to get into the nuances, well, if you have, if you're a little older or pre-existing condition, it doesn't really matter because, like Candy was saying before, you don't know about anybody's life. Somebody can look perfectly healthy and they can have a condition, or they can have a 98-year-old mother at home. You don't know.
Well, then you take that step a little further. They're early in the process here, okay? A lot of the older people are getting hit. Now all the younger people are getting hit. Wonder why? Negligence 101, baby. And, they took it for granted. They thought that they were not going to be able to be affected. Shame on anybody else. They're affected.
Well, I'm not in that high risk. Why do I need to be cautious and careful?
Right.
Right.
And the problem is it's not just you that you're getting in contact with, I mean, I work. I've already said I work in a bank. Well, let's face it. The UPS driver comes. So how many people has he came in contact with? And now he just walked in, and delivered packages. You have your mailman. If you see your mailman, and maybe you don't, because I know sometimes they just drop things off now. But you go out to eat, you go to the grocery store, there's a cashier there, there's other, people there. You go to the gas station, you fill up your gas tank, and there's so many different, how should I put it? Whether if it's just airborne, is it not airborne? Can you touch something that they touched and then get it? And all these people, there's some that say, oh, you got to wear gloves. And some people say, no, you don't. Some people say, just wash your hands really well.
That's true. That's true. And I think it goes back to the me versus the we.
Right.
I mean, if we think of, we're on the same team. We're on the team that want to get through it. Scott, have you ever seen a team win the World Series or a team win the Super Bowl that didn't play as a team? I mean, teams win.
Oh, no question about it, Ron. That's a given. I mean, unlike basketball where you can have a superstar carry you, and you do need a team, but there are some sports where one guy can really carry you. But for the most part, you have to have even in basketball, you have to have 12, 15 guys that are certainly shooting for the same thing. So, in certain sports, certain individual efforts will stand more. But yeah, in the end, it's all about team. This is not tennis. This isn't golf where you have individual sports. You're talking about
there is no I in team.
Right. Now, in golf, you might say, well, I need a caddy. Okay, in tennis, you might have a coach. But in the end, you're still out there hitting the ball, and you still have to do it, whereas everybody else gets a feel for the ball, too, or whatever, puck, ball, whatever. So, yeah, you definitely have to have a team concept.
Yeah, I mean, that's just because I think thinking of your Zoom call, I mean, yes, you focus on the different players and who's doing what, but still, the team's going to win. Team's going to play those 60 games. It's not one person's not going to win those 60 games. It's impossible. And the same thing with this. We're on the same team. Let's look out for the other members of the team.
Yeah, I wish what we're saying, which is so simple, is called actions speak louder than words, but unfortunately that cliche went down the toilet based on the numbers that you have. Actions speak louder than words. Every single cliche we have, okay, you can go out there and say contradiction, not happening, like this thing can happen. We're all rebels. We're all rebelling, and we should be a rebel with a cause. That rebel with a cause being the fact that the cause is to do what you're supposed to do to protect yourself, but nada.
No, exactly. And that's why I think it's good. And kind of what, even going back to the article, talks a little about when people talk about it all the time, because it's so frustrating to us, to have to deal with it, but we have no choice. We have to deal with it. And yes, we all want distractions. I think, and Scott, I don't know, I kind of want your thoughts on this. Don't we need sports, if they can be played safely, and that's a caveat for everything, don't we need sports now more than ever? To just join together and focus on something that's not just sad and looking at these numbers every day. Well, we have to look at the numbers, but don't we need that?
Well, you'd like to think we need it, but it's one thing to need it. It's another being able to carry it out. I mean, let's not kid yourself. Some sports are way ahead of others. NASCAR, you're getting it even though you have no fans. Okay, we've had that going on for a while. Golf is still out there, but again, but now we're seeing some tests pop in. Jimmy Johnson missed the Brickyard 400 over the weekend because of COVID-19, although from what I hear, he's actually projected to be suited up again this coming Sunday. I think hockey, I've gone on record saying I think that's the one sport that stands a chance to actually finish. The NFL, I mean, you have a lot more players, a lot more risk. And again, we're talking about baseball tests are popping up. It's ironic to be on his Zoom call where the manager is hoping that we get this thing going, but you can never see any clear positive. Don Mattingly, to me, has a great poker face, and he showed it today in front of 25 of us, and he's going to have to continue to build that poker face. And even Adam Silver has gone out there and said that the bubble is only as good as it is, but if we have a bubble within a bubble, then he realizes what the extent of this virus is. So, yeah, we definitely need it as a deviation. We're all being tested to our maximum in terms of tolerance, but, it's just do we concede what COVID-19 is? Yeah, you have to. I mean, I hear that the NFL's going to ask their fans to sign a waiver so they're not health liability. Being a lawyer, what do you think the probability of that is?
of them signing a waiver?
Yeah, to go to a game and run the risk of COVID-19? I don't know. I wouldn't sign a waiver. I'd stay home. But again,
I don't know.
I'm
sorry, guys.
No, that's all right. Wouldn't be upset with the team for trying to do it, but whether or not the average individual will do it and whether it's realistic, I don't know. The next several weeks, as we've seen in the whole process. Now, I've actually read today that the Ivy League has gone out there and said that they're canceling fall sports and may not even take they may actually go out there and have restart them up in spring. Candy, what do you have?
I was just reading the Ivy League has informed its programs that fall sports have been canceled. With the information available to us today regarding the continued spread of the virus, we simply do not believe we can create and maintain an environment for intercollegiate athletic competition that meets our requirements for safety and acceptable levels of risk, consistent with the policies that each of our schools is adopting as part of the reopening plans for this fall. And they canceled the Ryder Cup in golf for this year.
Well, you got to remember, the Ivy League may not be a Power 5 conference like a lot of these heavy hitters, but there aren't any dummies in that conference. I mean, you're talking Harvard, Yale, Princeton, you name it. And this could be the first domino to drop in terms of how the college athletes and colleges approach this whole thing. When the Ivy League talks, okay, I'll give you another great analogy. They always say when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. Well, when the Ivy League talks, other colleges are going to listen. Well, we're on a roll tonight with these one-liners, aren't we, called Scottisms.
I like Scottisms. And I agree with you, Scott. You're 100%. Once the Ivy League does that, the other one's going to have to listen. Whatever's going to happen. And you mentioned the Ryder Cup. That's a little surprise, but I completely understand it. Just like I know next month the U.S. Open, tennis U.S. Open is supposed to happen. I'm kind of wondering how that could happen when you have all these international players, especially with the international sports, and you have people coming from all over the world, whether it's the U.S. Open or the French Open or Wimbledon or whatever. I don't know how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? I mean, I don't get it. And I know the U.S. is the epicenter right now, but you can have all this travel?
Yeah, but you know what, Ron? The French Open seems to think they can get 60% attendance is what they seem to think, and maybe they're way ahead of it and handling it better. So, from what I've heard, and I've done my research on that, they seem to think they're going to get a fair amount of fans and they have a plan to do it. But again, France may be further along in the process than the United States. We don't know what's going to happen with the U.S. Open. This is one of those developing stories that changes every single second. So
That's true. That's true, because I heard there's some pushback from the players, and I guess France is probably ahead. Maybe, and theirs is going to be in September, I think.
Yeah, September 27th to October 11th.
So there's a little more time too.
Yeah.
Because if the numbers are going down in France, because let's go back to what you said in the beginning of the show, it's all about the numbers. The numbers are going down in France. You figure it's July. You got all of July, all of August, half of September. Maybe that will work. Having in the U.S. right now, I don't know.
Well, let me tell you, when we had the NFL draft in April, I was thrilled that we had it because we were the Miami Dolphins, Jacksonville Jaguars sending us stuff, and we're able to get it out there to a lot of our readers. But all of a sudden, and they had time. Well, guess what, folks? Okay, this is July 8th. All of a sudden, that time is starting to dwindle. Preseason games are dropping like dominoes. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't have any. And all of a sudden now the NFL is on the clock. And I have yet to even contact my media distribution in terms of how many games I'm going to cover, though it's my hope to cover as many as I can. But again, this is another moving story to see how many media people they will. I think they'll accommodate media, but they'll have certain standards about where they're going to put us. But that'll be something that I'm not going to talk about tonight. To stay on subject, but yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. Go ahead, Candy.
Well, and right now there is a lot of, how should I put it, dissent within the state, within the counties, on the whole big debate is, what do we do with the kids in schools?
That is a huge question. Yes,
huge question. Do they go back to school? Do they go back to what it was? Do they go back to, how do they effectively teach while keeping social distancing? And if there's mandates for masks, how do they, let's face it, when some of us were younger, we were more soft-spoken, and to talk through a mask in a class, and now you got a social distance, so now your back row is even further back. How do you see that front, class board? Is that the right thing to do, or is it virtual, having class from virtual? There's pluses and minuses, and if you go virtual, then what do you do with all the working parents? What do they do? How do they manage working while their kids should be in school, but they're not, so now they're home, so now what do you do?
Well, think about when I do these broadcasts, okay? We can conveniently do them over the phone, but there might be other people that we both know that I'll tell them, if you want to come here, I'm not putting a mask on when you're across from the microphone. Are you comfortable with that, or do you want to wait? Some might be more open to it. Some may not. I understand that. So we'll have to prolong those and keep the phone calls coming in until everybody's comfortable. We don't know when that's ever going to be. But, it's tough enough to make sure that these broadcasts are heard properly, let alone stick a mask in front of my face and make it even more challenging for us to actually do these. So I'm content to write it, but I have to base myself on the level of comfortability that you have based on the other side and where common sense comes into play. Because with all this pandemic isolation is making all of us bonkers anyhow.
That is for sure. That is for sure. And I think Candy raises a key point about the schools, and I certainly don't know the answer to that because you're dealing with so many things. You're dealing with kids and you're dealing with their parents, and I think it evens all over the board because a kindergartner is going to have different needs than a sixth grader versus a 12th grader, and then you got the whole issue of the college students, which is a whole other issue. Right. So it's something that I don't know. We're going to have to grapple with it together, and I think in a way, everybody wanted to get through the last school year, and they did with all the home learning and the distancing and that. And they said, let's get to the summer. We got to the summer. Now we're halfway through the summer. Right. So now we got to think what comes next. And I don't have an answer. And kind of what Scott said, you have to do certain things. He has to broadcast his way, without a mask, which I completely understand, and people are uncomfortable, and you can accommodate. So how do you translate that into dealing with something like education? And I don't know the answer. You're right, because I was that kind of timid kid too. I didn't really say much, and I probably wouldn't have been heard through a mask. So I don't have an answer. Do we delay it? Do we change it? Do we, depending on the grades? I don't know. But it's a great question.
But my problem with saying we delay it is this isn't the second wave. We haven't finished the first wave, and they say that there's going to be a second wave. So is that second wave going to hit us around the holidays when we'd be back in school? I don't have the answer. Don't get me wrong. And fortunately for me, I'm not in education or have to do with that. And unfortunately, it's becoming a political issue for that as well, whereas it shouldn't be.
Let me tell you, my youngest niece, Bria Morgan Roth, here's a young lady here that's really looking forward to her college experience. She'll be actually attending Florida Atlantic University. Is she coming here in August? I don't even know. With the numbers being what they are there going to be online courses available for her to take when she's in Michigan? Is it safe for her to come down? TBD. We don't know. To me, anytime you graduated from high school, you're on that high, and now you're ready to go to college. But all of a sudden, COVID-19 hits, and you know what? That trip down I-75 might just have to wait a little bit longer and do them online. And I guess that's a problem that my brother and my sister-in-law are going to have to figure out when the coast is clear, as they say. But we'll find out. I know she's excited about her new college experience. But you talk about the unprecedented times that we're dealing with, and I'm sure every college student is faced with that dilemma. This is just something where it hits closer to home with me, relating to my youngest niece. But
how about all the ones that are under scholarship?
Right.
And all those that were under scholarship last year that didn't get to finish out, and they said, okay, well, you know what? I didn't really get my senior year. I'm going to stay another year in And so now you've got they're staying, and now you got a whole nother set of freshmen coming in, and now you have all these athletes. You have a whole, I don't know what you do with all of that.
Yeah, Candy, I think that's a fantastic question, and I just don't. There's no answer, and I really do feel for the young people, whether they're in college or in high school, when you're in your formative years and you're supposed to have great experiences, and unfortunately, these kids, we'll call them, are going through that now. I mean, it's one thing for us, so-called adults, to go through and adapt. It's hard for us. Can you imagine when it's your last year of high school or your last year of college or your first year of college, and you've been looking forward to it all the time, kind of like you were talking about, Scott? I mean, with your niece, I mean, this is something that you look forward for years, especially when you're going to travel to another state, coming from Florida to Michigan. Is it the same taking an online class back home? No. Is she going to have to do it? We'll see. I think that group of people, the kids are the hardest hit with this, in the sense that their life is totally disrupted, because you're not going to get your senior year back in high school or college. I mean, I've heard of a lot of high school athletes that, they can't play their last year of baseball or their last year of soccer or tennis or what it is. And the same thing in college.
Good point. Yeah.
It's gone. What do you do? And you can't get it back. So I'm sure, whether we liked our high school, college years or not, we don't want to have it taken away from us. So I don't know what to do. I think it's tough, and I think we as adults, the old fogies here, if you will, have to, be supportive and more understanding to that, and try to just help them through it.
There's no way I could have ever taken online classes of any kind, whether I was going after my insurance license, whether it would have been in college. I need that interaction face-to-face, because I ask a lot of questions. Some people have different ways to learn it. I mean, I have no problem with the Zoom calls, even though today I got to do one that I never thought I would. But and to talk about indirect contact, like we've talked about, normally I would do it. But when it comes to education of any kind, I need the direct, no matter what. But there's perception and there's reality. And online courses were unheard of when we were actually going to school. Now they're common all over the place, and every university offers them. So, yeah, again, another one of those new situations that we're all forced to deal with.
Exactly. So that's why I thought the topic was interesting. And one, like the article, and then it goes into something, a little maybe lighter, like the hug and the handshake. It's so common in our society that you greet people with a handshake. Is that going to go away? Is it going to go away temporarily? I mean, right now you're not supposed to shake somebody's hand. Not that we're really supposed to be in contact much anyway. But when we get back to meeting, how are those meetings going to be? I mean, you kind of talk about, just a social meeting or a business meeting. I mean, there's going to be so many different. I mean, kind of like the Zoom call you had today, Scott. It would be pretty much physically impossible to have that meeting live right now. I mean, you would be so far away from Don Mattingly, you wouldn't be able to hear a word he said. There's just no way to do it.
Yet, ironically, when you talk about that, Ron, when I was at my doctor last week, we did exchange elbow, we collided elbows, which is kind of neat. I've never seen something like that before, but you know what? That may be the new type of handshake for sure.
Hey, it might. We might all be doing elbow bumps. Let's go ahead and push the elbow bumps. Down with the handshake, up with the elbow bumps.
Yeah.
Down the road. See, hey, and your doctor, you got to trust your doctor, right? Think about it.
Well, after what he's put up with me, for crying out loud, that guy outside of Candy deserved gold medals.
So I just thought, I'm glad we're talking about it, and I hope, the folks out there listening at least, think about it, and you're definitely not alone. We're all going through this together, and I guess we have to go back. I hate to say it, but we've got to go back to Scott's numbers. Look at the numbers.
Yeah.
So as we go through that article, we talk about the handshake. You also talk about, Ron, about friends seem to focus on one thing, that's a pandemic. So, like you said, you can't avoid it, so you do have to make the best of it, although that, in my opinion, is easier said than done, isn't it?
It's a lot easier said than done. I do. And I think that's why, people are doing, maybe watching more TV, reading more books, being online more, whatever the case may be, or working more to try and get out of it. I mean, we're doing the best we can. I mean, look at you, Scott. You just, you just work nonstop now. Now, you always did, but this isn't helping. You're pushing out things. We all have to change what we're doing. We can't get away from it. We just have to adapt. And so far, we're adapting it. And as much as we land-based technology, got to be happy we have it.
Yeah, it's a difference. It's something different than I never ever visualized I'd be doing, embracing it. But you're right. You have to make the best of such a situation. And I had news for you. I have my moments where I could go out there and blow up and just want to go anywhere I can. But if I do that, then I'm inviting a problem that would be called regrettable. And like they always say, we all know it's doom and gloom. Where we're not able to travel as much as we want, and especially in my particular station, where my mother obviously is severely ill. I can't see her, so I'm trying to make the best while everybody back in my hometown is able to see the woman. But I'm not going to dwell on it. But tell me it doesn't burn me up inside to a large extent.
Of course, and how can it? You just got to, and you're making do. You're making the best you can. And I think you kind of make a point there that you don't have. It can burn you up. I don't think we're saying you need to embrace it. Embrace it in the sense that it's okay. We all know it's not okay, but you have to deal with it. Whatever way you have to deal with it, you have to deal with it.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, again, some of the things that I'm intrigued about the article is you talk about your house and your rules. So go ahead. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with that. I mean, right now I don't think really anybody's visiting anybody, but if somebody's having some kind of occasion where they're having people over, I think the owner's house, if you're going to somebody's house, I think it's a respectful thing to follow their rules. If their rules are certain distancing, let's say they're having, I don't know, a birthday party or something for somebody, and it's outside, and even though it's outside, they want you to wear a mask and social distance. I mean, you just do. You follow the house rules. I mean, I think that's courtesy. I don't know what you guys think about it, but that's my pondering on that.
Well, we don't invite anybody over. In fact, I never knew anything about a Zoom birthday party, but we had, a couple in our family, Candy? What, we had one with Denise, and who else did we have prior? We had one or two of these.
Emily.
Yeah, Emily.
One of my nieces turned sweet 16, and it happened to be during this pandemic, and so we did a Zoom birthday where we all did signs and had happy birthday signs that we made up, and we all had our own desserts because we live in different states. And so we all got on the Zoom. We all got our dessert. We all sang happy birthday to her, and it was just very different, but it was very cool.
And then Denise, we had one on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So everybody had theirs. So that Zoom birthday party, zoomed pretty quick because nobody was going up there. But you know what? If they say the next best thing to being there, then so be it. We'll deal with that.
Yeah, I agree, and I've been involved in the Zoom birthday party too. I had one for my nephew, and it is. It's the thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, is it what you want? No, but you embrace it and you have fun with it, and just as long as the person knows that they're cared about and loved, hey, you do the best you can, especially when you're in different states. What are you going to do?
I'm not so sure I'd be enthusiastic about a Zoom funeral or however they're doing it, but
I've heard that.
Oh boy,
I've heard of those
we
too.
don't want to get into that one, do we?
No, but we can't avoid it because of the fact that you have some people that just simply can't get there, and if they can't, they can't. I'm not thinking about it now, but don't think it doesn't enter my mind from time to time. Knowing the fluidity of my situation, for sure.
And there are some states that right now that if we would travel to them, we would be under quarantine for 14 days because we're from Florida and that's where the hotbed is.
Yeah, I know. I've read that. Since we're in a hotspot, if we travel somewhere else, we're going to be quarantined 14 days. So right. it kind of totally, why do it? It's not going to get you anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, nothing like the old
in a literal sense.
Yeah, nothing like the old epicenter, right? Here we are, Florida. I remember many years ago when I was living in Arizona doing a radio broadcast for auto racing. I hear that Florida messed up the elections, and it took them weeks to recount until they finally determined what a winner is.
The hanging Chad.
Yeah, the hanging Chad, right? So meanwhile, here we are.
I remember that full well, living in Florida and being involved in a little bit of that in the legal land. Oh boy, we don't want to get into the hanging Chad. Trust me.
The hanging Chad. But meanwhile, we're in the epicenter of a pandemic. My goodness. So let's go on to the delivery person or neighbor that tries to hand you something. That's a pretty interesting situation, isn't it, Ron?
Yeah, that is a pretty interesting situation because most people, they have deliveries. It's set down by the door, and then you get it. I guess this could happen if you're outside, and it actually, I've seen it happen. It happened to me one time. It happened to be outside, and the person comes over, and it's a very awkward thing. It's a very awkward where you kind of you're programmed to just reach out and take it, but I think that reasonable thing to do is say, "Oh, great, thank you so much." Just set it, just put it down there, and I'll get it later. And to be simple that way, to be as polite as you can, but it actually goes against doing it. It goes against the grain. It goes against what you used to. You used to just putting your arms out. You actually got to think, oh no, don't put my arms out. And then you feel like, why am I being so rude? But you're really not. So I think I think the best thing to do is just say, hey, great to see you. Just go ahead and put it down and leave it at that. Easier said than done, though.
We don't have that problem. I don't go ahead and talk to, I don't order any food in, so we don't have a delivery person there. UPS and FedEx usually drops everything off by the door. And, I'm polite with my neighbors. I have really great neighbors on both sides of us. But, in terms of any of that, thankfully, that doesn't apply to us, at least at home. I don't know what it does with you at work, Candy.
I mean, obviously, I have a staff and we're all close. But, we used to maybe do, high fives or that kind of thing. And now instead of a high five, we say, here's an air five. And you just make the motion and you don't get close enough, but that way you're both making the motion, It's hard because, you get close, you work with people long enough and you get close to them. You want to celebrate in their successes and you also want to be there in times of tragedy. And I can say part of the whole pandemic is I think people aren't taking it seriously because they don't know of anybody that's gotten really sick. And until you know somebody that's gotten really sick or died from it, God forbid, that it just doesn't hit home. It's not going to happen to me. It happens to somebody else. And I can honestly say it didn't happen at my branch, but in one of the branches in my market, one of the branches I used to work at, one of the coworkers there, both her parents died of COVID. And when you can say that, it hits home that much harder. And it's just like, and you just want to reach out and give them a hug, but you can't. And you say, my arms are wrapped around you right now. You feel that tight squeeze, even though, and you can make the motion, but you're not going to get that close to do it, obviously, because you just can't.
Right.
But it's times like those that are hard that it's like it really hits home, and it's like,
Yeah, well, let's take it down.
That's tough. That's really tough. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
Oh, yeah, that is sad. When you told me that story, I just melted. It was unreal. One thing to lose one parent, but to lose them that way. Oh,
to lose them both with COVID, that just kind of unfathomable. That's bad.
Well,
and
social media covers a lot of this as well as with reality, too. So we talk about that, about couples dying. What about when you're invited to a wedding or other gathering, you want to wear a mask? Obviously, the smart thing is to wear it. But then again, here you are, you're dealing with the photos as well, and a big celebration. And here we are, the good old Kodak moment got a little disrupted by COVID-19.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely, more of the something to think about. A lot lighter than, unfortunately, what Candy is talking about. But it's an interesting thing. What do? You don't want to be the one in the wedding pictures with the mask, but you also want to be safe. So what do you do? I don't know. Fortunately, I haven't run across that one, and I don't really anticipate it because how many people are having masks? I mean, they just happened to do the delivery person because it happened to be outside in the driveway when somebody came up, and they usually leave at the door. So that was just a happenstance. Like you said, everything gets left at the door. This one's a little more interesting. I mean, if you're invited to a wedding, if you're really uncomfortable, maybe you don't go, but what if it's a family member or a close friend and you can go? I don't know. That's a toughie. I just don't know the answer to this one. It's an interesting little thought process, though, isn't it?
I would say I know a couple that was supposed to get married. They decided to postpone the wedding because they wanted everybody to be there. So what they actually did is they went down and they got married themselves, and they're going to do a celebration outside of this. But the problem, and I feel bad for them, because they had to cancel everything. They didn't get all their deposits back because the businesses just don't have the money to even give them their deposits back.
Wow,
so that was kind of sad. But I can say, like at my sister's wedding, I think one of the cute ideas is they had a photo booth. Where you'd have little masks or little different things that you would go in and have silly pictures. Well, you know what? Have some of those at your wedding.
Well, Ron, we could take this a little closer to home with Shirley Klein. I know her daughter Alicia was supposed to have a wedding, but unfortunately that wedding got altered by this whole situation. And my heart's out to Shirley and Alicia for an event that should have been, but unfortunately they were on the wrong side of the luck aspect of things. So
I know, and that's a tough. I mean, that's a sad thing. It's kind of an event that is just never going to be the same. I mean, so yeah, do you put it? I mean, if you're the person getting married, that's a great question. You put it off. Do you just get married, quietly, and then have a celebration later? I guess it's a personal decision everybody has to make. But right now, I mean, especially where we are, you can't really think of having a gathering with 100 people. 200 people.
Yeah, not that many.
I don't think so anyway.
I agree. Not that many. I mean, and I think if you're going to hold, something like a wedding or an event like that, you have to, I would supply masks for everybody.
I think that's a good idea.
Here's a mask for everybody. We're asking you, we realize this is the pandemic. We're going to take some outside pictures with just us, but all the inside pictures will have masks on. And whether that you like that or not, you make the decision. Yes, I want to have a wedding at this time. Yes, I still want to go through with it. The reality is we're in a pandemic. This will be a way for us to see that in our wedding pictures for forever, and then do some outside pictures where it's just you and your spouse, or you and, you might not have to have the masks on because you can, be a little further apart and you're outside.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. I guess you're right. It's personal choice whether you want to go through it. You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, nobody planned for this,
right?
And you just have to deal with it accordingly. But I do feel for people that are going, that are planning such lifetime events. But what are you going to do?
You're going to go get married on the beach down here in Florida. I mean, some of the beaches are closed, so mean you can't. But if the beaches were open, you could social distance more outside.
That's absolutely true.
And take, get pictures. I mean, I can remember one of the pictures from my sister's wedding is we were at the park and we were on the playground equipment. So we were all social distancing because we were all in different pieces, different swings or, every other swing or this or that or on the slide. And there was distance, but it was just cool. And so you can do different, unique things to make it special and make it fun yet.
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. And that kind of brings up, somewhat more when you're dealing, if you have younger, or if you're involved with younger children, have younger children in the family, and they want to have a party to have little kids around there with each other because they're not understanding the social distancing. So I think that's another thing you got to think about. Is that something you're going to do, or just have one of those? Have you heard about the drive-by parade parties?
Oh yeah.
that may be the way to do it for now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you talk about children. That's the only thing we can't go ahead. Like you said, make it about your needs and not their behavior. So how do you deal with that, Ron?
Well, I think you're right. You're right. You have to just deal with it accordingly. I mean, you have to know that kids, they're small, and the small kids are not going to understand. So you really got to think about having the event in the first place. You're not going to be able to control 30, 40 kids running around in a park. They're gonna. I'm sure when we were little, we all had a good time playing with our friends, and that's what little kids do. Especially the little ones. I'm talking 2, 3, 4-year-olds. Maybe you don't have a birthday party. Maybe you have the drive-by parade party where all the friends and relatives come by and drive by the street, and everybody waves and honks and has a good time. It's just one of those things, and I know they're in vogue now, and you can do them over Zoom. You can have the parade and then do it over Zoom or something like that. I don't know. What do you think, Scott?
That's a tough call. I mean, you certainly, unfortunately, during unprecedented times, you have to keep the kids away from each other because, while we recently saw a death report with an 11-year-old, who knows what's going to happen when you get a bunch of young kids together and who's carrying what based on who they're around, whether it's their folks or whatever. There's so many different variables there. As much as you hate to keep them away from their fellow kids, you're almost forced to really do it whether you like it or not, and for no other reason, precautionary purposes.
Yeah, I agree with that. You just have to, you kind of have to, be the adult, as I say, and do the thinking and just do what's best for everybody. Like you said, it's the kids. It's also the kids who their parents and their grandparents and brothers and sisters, they could be carrying things. Hopefully, little kids don't get it, which of course we still don't know. But even if that's the case, they still have relatives.
Right, they could be a carrier.
True.
You never know.
That's true too. Good point about the family members.
You just don't know. Yeah. You just don't know. You just don't know these things. So, it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to unpack, as they say.
Well, yeah, you got children. Go ahead, Candy.
So, Ron, I was going to say, since we're talking about that's a lot, and it's heavy, and it's a lot of things that we've never had to deal with. What is something that we could do to take our mind away from that?
Well, just kind of people are getting into, maybe find a new, just some thoughts off the top of my head, find a new hobby, maybe learn a second language, learn to pick up an instrument, something that you can do, do a puzzle, just try to be quiet, try to decompress maybe every once in a while. That's my thought. An excellent thing is to listen to South Florida Tribune. Obviously not tonight's show because tonight's show is heavy on that, but there's a lot of shows that Scott's done that are fun shows. Sometimes it may be podcast is a really a good thing. I mean, you could pick up a podcast about anything and say, "Oh, I just want to listen. I want to learn something," or I feel like something like tonight. I love baseball. Let's pick up the podcast that Scott did about baseball. I think you just kind of sometimes you have to distract because otherwise you're just going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, I'm too old for Xbox, so let's forget about that for sure. And in terms of me ever trying to get a second language, let me tell you a great story, guys, okay? And that's this. When I was in high school, I tried to take Spanish, and I only lasted 3 days. Where do you think I ended up? Back in wood shop. Heck no. And then what do you think happened at University of South Florida? You know what? Foreign language requirement. What do you think happens? I piled on the courses and made sure I got out there by August of 1986, or I would have been stuck in September of 86. What would that have had in common with Welcome Back, Cotter and the Sweat Dogs? I wasn't going anywhere, and that was getting too damn expensive for me to stick around with the old second language thing. So I don't think so. But yeah, trying to spend more time surfing on the internet certainly beats the heck out of being around somebody, especially if there is a problem. But yeah, we certainly, there's a lot of different things. I know in the broadcasting industry that we're in, there's certainly a lot of choices that people can do, and I don't think there's any shortage of things for individuals, depending on what part of the country that you're in, and to me, but really what it comes down to, Ron, and I think we always talk about the fact that your friends and families think that you worry too much about corona. safety virus. I disagree. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Well, I know that it's out there, but I kind of disagree with that. I mean, I haven't really seen that. I mean, I think we're all worried. I mean, how can we not be worried? I think it might be on the other end. Maybe some people in the family that aren't worried enough. That's the way that's my experience so far.
I'd rather let people think I worry about it too much and get sick. I don't care what anybody thinks. Everybody's got an opinion, and you know what? Don't necessarily agree with it, but if they think I worry, so bad. I don't care. Maybe my medical bills for a change will be a lot lower than theirs. And when they want to go out there and deal with high medical bills, then tell me they think I'm worried too much. And we'll see who's in ICU instead of me saying I see you in ICU.
I agree 100%. I've had the experience of somebody wanting to have lunch, and they were kind of pushing a little bit, and I just had to say, no, I'm not comfortable. And they probably thought, you're being, what are you worried about that? Like, hey, I'd rather go through that than go through the lunch and then be worried about it and maybe get it.
Yeah, well,
err on the side of caution is always easier, and it's always safer because you just this is something we've never dealt with before. We don't know who has it. We don't know exactly how it's spread. We don't know if we even have a touch of it, and if we were exposed to more, we'd get it worse.
You're right. We just don't know. There's no comparable in anybody that's around now that has any experience with this. The last comparable thing was the Spanish flu of 1918. Not a lot of people are around from 1918 to 1920. So pretty much everyone that you deal with hasn't experienced this before. So we're all going through it together. And I love what you say, err on the side of caution. Because if you err on the side of caution, the worst that can happen is you were a little too cautious. That's not going to affect you. If you weren't cautious, well, we know how that can go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So what's the bottom line, Ron?
Well, bottom line is everybody be safe and, just be cautious of others. And I think Candy said it better than anybody. What's the proper etiquette in a pandemic? Think about other people. You're wearing the mask to help them. You're staying away from them to help them. If we all help each other, we'll get through it.
Yeah.
This is one last thought. Think of the person that you're coming in contact with. Would you want them to get in that same contact with your mother, your sister, your daughter, or your family member? And if you don't, everybody should be wearing the mask.
Hey, listen.
That's a great way of thinking about it. I second that.
It's painful not to be able to shake somebody's hand or give them a hug. After all, everybody feels like they need some sort of compassion, but right now, unfortunately, the reality is it's come down to the fact that you can't do that. So at that particular point, you want your words to become your actions. You really do, because you're limited in terms of contact about what your actions can actually be. Now, if I sound like a psychologist, well, you know what? So be it. I don't really care, but in this particular word, your words better indeed be the equivalent to what your actions could have been, because you don't want to find out what should have been. Anybody getting that, then you deserve a BA degree from Harvard. If you're not, that's okay. Don't feel too bad. It doesn't make a lick of difference anyways. Because one would think that we have a master's degree and trying to figure out everything that we're hammering in you, that whether you decide to take it for whatever it's worth. So, I mean, the bottom line is it's been a great show. It really, really has. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is something that people have got to continue to take seriously. Pandemic etiquette, to me, is what we have to drill in our head no matter who's in charge, whether it's the President of the United States or the next one. It doesn't matter. We've got to take this seriously on every single level.
Stop making it political. It's American, and it's here, and we need to deal with it as Americans. It's not a black and white. It's not a Democrat, Republican. It's respecting the person beside you.
Great. We're all in it together.
We are. We're all in this together.
Yeah, there's so many gray areas in this whole thing that we learn every single second of the day. There are. And will the vaccination that subsequently comes of it cure everything? No, it won't. It'll cut down the death toll, hopefully. But until you have a vaccine, which I think we're still a ways away from getting anyways, okay, a vaccine is not the miracle worker. We're not anywhere close. But common sense certainly will take you a step further. It really, really will. And I think that, we can devote hours and hours to this whole subject about what you have to do, whether you're in public, whether or not you're around your neighbor, whether you're actually in a small gathering, whether or not you're able to do a handshake, how much you take advantage of the Zoom technology, keeping your emotions under control, trying to presume negative intent, okay, because you don't need to presume that, okay, and the list goes on, and how you treat other people. But in the end, everybody has to use common sense, protect themselves, but try to keep other feelings, protect them as well as you possibly can. And that's just not easier said than done as we work in different occupations about what's legitimately doable. So any final thoughts, Ron?
No, I think we touched on a lot of important subjects, and I just think, like I said before, we're all in this together, and we got to get through it together the best we can.
All right, so with that said, Ron, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Get a hold of me? Well, you can get a hold of me as, we haven't talked about today, but I'm a lawyer here in South Florida. You can get, my firm's name is Wahlberg & Renzy. You can reach me at 954-757-1212, 954-757-1212, or email me at my firm at info@wahlberg-renzy.com. That's info@WALLBERG-RENZY.com.
And not only that, go ahead and disclose your Twitter account and let also people know that you are our legal consultant here for the South Florida Tribune as well. You help us on legal matters when we need them, but let people know your Twitter information.
Thanks, Scott, for always reminding me about the Twitter. I appreciate that. It's at Wahlberg Renzy, PA.
Well, hey, listen.
WALLBERGRENZYPA. Thanks, Scott.
Oh, you're welcome, Ron. Hey, listen, it's something that nowadays social media is a love-hate relationship. Okay, I'm learning to handle the Zoom calls, and I had fun with my toy today, but that's just the means of all end. Candy, anything you want to add about your involvement with the Tribune, what you actually do for us?
I would just say go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. We have all kinds of articles from sports to non-sports. We put all our podcasts up there. Very interesting stuff and very diverse. Whether you're a sports fan into racing or NASCAR, into IMSA, into baseball, into football, we have it all, and it's there. And we even have people writing theater reviews, let's say. I mean, obviously right now there's not many theater going on, but theater reviews. We have, Ron, you gave us a sample of small claims court, what a judgment you would look like. We have everything. Scott wrote a story recently. He's got a column in there. Just go to it and browse for a while. Get lost in it, as I like to say. Take your mind away from some of what's going on, the pandemic. Relax, enjoy, read a good article, listen to a good podcast. If you have any ideas or questions or thoughts for other future shows, email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com.
Yes, folks, every now and then I do write. And who knows, I may be picking up every now and then or more often. I like to do it, but when you're trying to put the whole thing together, you don't have as much time as you like. But with that said, let me give you our contact information as well. You can find me on Twitter at Tribune South. That's the @ Tribune South. I have a Facebook page, South Florida Tribune. Go there and like it. You'll get the updates. Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. YouTube channel, which I'm looking to do more and more with. Of course, I have to be cautious nowadays where I can go and what I can do, but South Florida Tribune, please go ahead and subscribe to that. Candy just alluded to www.southfloridatribune.com has everything that you can look for. You can email us. You mentioned it, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. LinkedIn, you can find me as well, Scott Morganroth. And, of course, you can find these broadcasts here at southfloridatribune.com or wherever you get your podcasts. So you are listening to No Limits on the WSAN network. We're proud to bring you this show once a week. So We hope that you get as much as you can out of it. Listen to it, download, whatever you've got to do. Our main objective is that we want to make sure that we touch on a lot of the important subjects, whether they're in the sports world, primarily out of it. We like to keep this one limited to non-sports related subjects unless we have a home run that we'll do. So we want to keep it wide open, and the word no limits definitely indeed describes what this broadcast is. So on behalf of Candy Ebling and Ron Renzy, my name is Scott Morgan, Route the Motor City Madmouth, wishing you a good evening. And once again, please listen to this broadcast. We guarantee you'll get plenty out of it. So until the next time on No Limits, this is Scott Morgan, Route the Motor City Madmouth. Good evening, everybody.